Sometimes I forget myself. I call it float. It's a strange feeling I get where a sound, image, or even a thought sends me back to some moment in my life that is vaguely remembered, that has a powerful gravity, a strong feeling, a sense of place and of being present. So much gravity it makes me float from where I am into this memory. It almost feels like leaning back in a chair and you're about to fall. I was at a restaurant with my wife where I saw this man with his wife and 2 kids. I saw him lift his water up to his face in a certain way. Movements of his hands, eyebrows. At first it was just a sense of familiarity, and then float. Vague memories of times with my brothers. The orange of the light as we played in the grass, so vivid. Lights reflecting on the lake, and wonder about what was on the other side as if it were across the Atlantic. Powerful feelings overtook me like waves. What is it about this man and his family that stirred up these images? What were these images anyway? Where did they come from? Because as far as I knew, I never had any brothers. My wife must have sensed my disturbance because she touched me and asked me what was wrong. I told her honestly that I felt the man sitting over there with his wife and 2 little girls was my brother. "You don't have a brother," she said. "I know. And yet I remember, in flashes and feelings, growing up with him." I've had times where I wasn't sure if these moments of float were real memories. Sometimes I thought they might be memories of glimpsed TV shows mixed with overheard stories. I don't know. This time, I think there was more to it. The man glanced over at me. We made eye contact. He looked frightened. He put some money on the table, then left with his family. A long time ago, actually, when I was still a child, I asked my parents where Anthony and Zeke had gone and when they were coming back. I remember being sure I had these 2 brothers, and I remember the sheer frustration I felt when they acted as if they had no idea who I was talking about. When I persisted, they seemed more annoyed than concerned. They said I'd played with 2 kids in the old apartments we lived at, and I was confused. Then they said I was thinking of characters from a cartoon. At first I argued a lot. That was the first time in my life I experienced arguing passionately from my view of reality, and the first time I experienced giving in to someone else's. I believed them and forgot about having brothers. Often throughout my life, while listening to moody songs, vestiges of those allegedly fabricated memories would return, and for just a few seconds, I would float off. Some of those memories were triggered again, and new ones. A memory of being at some strange house at night, a field of turnips with a bonfire nearby. Being in an old wooden room with a light in the sky outside the window. Thinking about that man I saw at the restaurant, who I think was Anthony. More parts of the memory flashed into place. At first a slow trickle, then over the following hours, a torrent. I lay in bed all that night putting them into some kind of order. How it starts. I remember waking up feeling helpless. I felt I couldn't stop something very bad from happening. I'm scared and disoriented. I woke up thinking I was in my own bedroom, except it's unnaturally dark, and I realized the window is not where it should be, and the bed doesn't feel right or smell right. I have to be 8 or 9 years old because I'm wearing my fuzzy tiger PJs. I hadn't wanted to go to sleep in the first place. I'd been forced to go to bed and miss out on more fun. I was mad about that. All the family, my aunts and uncles and cousins, were together and telling stories and gossiping. I was absorbing it all, wrapped, shaking, loving every second. I cried to stay when my mother made me brush my teeth and go to bed. It felt like I was still down there, though, because through the floor in the bedroom, I could hear the ongoing talk even if I couldn't make out the words. So I had fallen into a nice sleep, feeling like a feather floating in space. By the time I woke up, the talking had stopped. The lights downstairs had gone out, and something felt strange. I remember sitting in this bed and trying to calm myself down by thinking through it. I only felt strange because I was in this strange place, I thought. And it's not that strange. It's just a farmhouse, owned, I think, by my great-uncle Horatio. We'd come here once before for a visit, I was pretty sure. At least if this was the same place where huge mushrooms grew. Just this was my first time in my recollection that everyone stayed overnight. I became aware of a light outside the window. I got out of bed to check, thinking to myself the family must have moved outside and lit a bonfire to tell more stories, and dreading that I was missing out on both stories and marshmallows. My brothers Anthony and Ezekiel were still asleep, each in their own cot in the room. If these were kids I played with at the apartments, why were they at this family gathering? Or, put another way, if they weren't my brothers, who were they? And why does nobody speak of them? Looking out the window, I saw a rectangle about the same level as me, which I think was the second story of my home, and maybe 100 feet away because it was hovering over the turnip patch, casting a bright light over the ground below. I remember feeling the light had a bluish quality, but it wasn't actually blue. One of those hostile fluorescent-looking lights, but bluer because it was in the dark blue sky. I thought I must be seeing something reflected in the window, like the door was open or a light was on. The rectangle appeared to be two-dimensional, as though it had been drawn onto the sky. It was like a cartoon, I thought. While I stared at it, it doubled in size to the size of a doorway when I saw a man step out of it. I always thought this memory was from a movie. The man stepped out confidently, like he had a purpose. I was terrified of him. He was wearing a gray suit, like a jumpsuit. His face looked gray too, and he stared straight ahead towards the driveway. While I watched, he seemed to walk down to the ground at an angle as if on an invisible ramp. Then another man with a similar disposition stepped out of the rectangle. He also walked down to the ground at the same angle. A third one was coming out of the door. I thought to myself, what do they want? When I did, the first man pointed up at me. I remember thinking that they must have heard me. They heard me thinking because I was thinking too loud. I was so scared I didn't want to move or make any noise, and I tried to stop myself from thinking. Then the rectangle closed, and the men went walking around to the front of the house. I tried to imagine all the places I could hide if they got in the front door, like under the bed or in the linen closet behind the towels. While I was doing that, I heard sounds from the front of the house. While I had been standing there imagining what to do, they were coming. I shook my brothers, but they weren't waking up. I ran from the room to get my parents. Their bedroom was empty. I went to each of the bedrooms looking for my family and found everybody was gone. I was freaking out, wondering where my family had gone, leaving me and my brothers here all alone, and now these gray people were coming to get us. This was in the early 2000s when not everyone had cell phones. I finally succeeded in waking my brothers up to tell them what I saw. They didn't believe me. I pleaded and begged for them to listen. That there were men coming from the square. I called it a square, not a rectangle. And nobody else was here. They said the stories we heard must have given me nightmares. And then we heard the front door open. Here I have some difficulty reconciling these flashes of memory. I think this might actually be two different memories that got fused together. Because I feel like after my brothers didn't believe me, I went to get my parents and they actually were in their bedroom, and they looked out the window and didn't believe me either. They said it was because of the stories the adults were telling, especially the story about how Grandpa's brother said he found a door in the woods and someone came out of it, and he knew that person was the devil, so he ran home. They were right that that story affected me, but I told them I did see it. They looked out the window with me, showed me there was no rectangle, and told me I had to go back to bed. I woke up later because I could hear talking through the floor again, and I got excited thinking the adults were awake and telling stories. I don't even recognize most of the voices. When I get to the den, some of my family is sitting in candlelight talking to other people I don't know. I'm immediately uncomfortable because I thought this was a family thing. and now there are these strangers and everybody seems fine with them. I remember what they were talking about didn't make sense to me. One of the men I didn't recognize asked, "Who's wearing the bluest? Who is the most blue?" A woman, I think she was my cousin Teresa, said she was wearing the bluest. They reached into a bag and gave her a stone from the bag. Then they asked, "Who was the least shape?" Some of my family pointed to me. They reached into the bag and gave me a blue circle with lines on it. I asked what was going on, and my mom just came up to me and said, "Shh, don't. Just go." I always used to think this was a memory of a Tupperware party. I don't think it was a Tupperware party. When I went back to bed, some of the strangers came up to the bedroom. I was scared that they were allowed to be there with us after bedtime and I didn't know them. They got Anthony and Zeke up out of bed. "Ice cream," I heard one of them say. I was wondering why I was being left behind. My mom came running in later and told me to just go back to bed. Anthony and Zeke would be back later. Then I never saw them again, and everybody denied they ever existed. I frantically wrote all these memories down after giving up on sleep. Though it was a lot better than I had before, I still wasn't satisfied with my recollection of these events. I wasn't sure I put things in the right order, or that these memories belonged together, or that some of these events even happened. I began staking out the area where I first saw the man I believed to be my brother. It was part of an outdoor shopping square where lots of middle-class people came shopping, getting their hair and pedicures done, and of course, dining while they're out. People who come to this place don't just happen by, like a truck stop or hole-in-the-wall diner. They're there on purpose and likely to come back. So during the time I'd normally go to the gym, I instead would walk around the square, looking into every shop, restaurant, and spa. Days and weeks went by keeping up this routine. I just couldn't give it up because the day I stop is the day he'd show up again. Or he was waiting and watching for my persistence to flag. Or he was aware somehow, like a psychic sense. I felt uncomfortable walking in the area. I had mentally prepared an explanation for why I was always walking around there. It's a public place, so I could walk all I want. Yet the other shoppers seemed to glance at me too much, like they knew something. And they looked familiar. That's the worst thing. That menacing sense of synchronicity, where you wonder whether you're in a simulation, faces repeated, or all these people are actors of some sort. Where had I seen them before? The woman walking her dog. I can remember her face laughing in yellow light, but I can't place where or when, a long time ago. The old man with the newspaper. I'm sure I saw him in a movie once. Over and over, I saw faces that had run through my life before. Some of them gave me powerful feelings. Some sent me floating to an unknown time and space. A strange mall I don't remember being in with shops near a staircase. An institute of some kind where the asphalt was crumbling before you turned in. Writing lines on a rock in a field somewhere. A street somewhere with little red-doored homes. Places and things I don't remember and yet glimpse from somewhere in my past. Seeing one face that strikes you in that way every so often is a fluke. This many is not. This is something. I gave up hope on finding Anthony, though. It had been weeks. But by that point, I was so used to the routine, I just kept doing it, wondering when these people would reveal themselves to me. Maybe they glanced at me feeling the same way. Didn't I see him in my school play in first grade? And just not being sure. One day near Christmas, when they had a Santa sitting in the center of the square and all the light posts were decked out, I felt someone tap my shoulder.
"You just won't give up, will you?"
he said.
"You were always a pain in the ass."
To him, perhaps this was a nuisance he had to get rid of with an offhand comment. But to me, I burst into tears and sobbed. I wasn't crazy. I had a brother. So many years taken from us. So many lies told. I looked up to see he was embarrassed at first, and then he hugged me. I couldn't talk then, but I didn't want to let him out of my sight. He promised not to disappear again, though he wanted to keep things between us for now.
"I'll explain later,"
he said, and we agreed. He'd meet at my home on the weekend. My wife works on the weekend. We could sit in my attic study and talk for hours undisturbed. This change meant I didn't know who I was, that my own family didn't know who I was. And that affected me. While I was in my study reading, I spotted my son down in the shed where he was allowed to play with paint. Instead of painting, it looked like he was just watching me through the attic window. Why else would he keep staring up at the attic window? I didn't like it, so I pretended I was reading a book. Every time I glanced to my right, there he was, still standing a foot inside the shed, staring up at the attic window. Minutes must have passed. He knew my eyes were shifting, I felt. He knew I wasn't reading. I was staring at the book, but not turning pages. It was getting dark. I realized it had to have been half an hour that I'd been pretending to read, yet I could still see his bright yellow jacket hovering there at the shed entrance, staring up at the attic window. Was that even my son? Why was he watching me? I turned off my light so there'd be no way he could see me. Yet he watched. I dared not even move. Did he still know I was there? Did he know what I was thinking? Could he read my thoughts? I wondered, staring at the spot where he stood, if my son could have been replaced by something else. Then I heard a noise on the stairs, and there he was, telling me it was time for dinner. He asked what I was doing in the dark. "On my way," I said. This kind of strangeness of thought and paranoia was pervading my life. My dreams turned strange. More powerful yet vague sensations and images crowded against what I thought was a reasonable narrative of what happened. In these dreams, there was no family at the farmhouse, all strangers and my parents. And I was alone in my bedroom now, seeing that light outside, that gray man, that thing looking up at me. I was so relieved to see Anthony at my door that Saturday. I asked if he wanted anything, and he just shook his head. He followed me up to the attic. He was a few dozen pounds overweight, I'd say, so he wasn't enjoying the stairs. When we got seated, he asked,
"Where do we start?"
"We knew all the same things," I said. He changed his mind about the drink then, so I poured us each a shot of Wild Turkey 101.
"What's the last thing you remember?"
I related what I had started to remember as best I'd pieced it together. I didn't get too far before he interrupted.
"And that wasn't our family, and we certainly didn't own the place. It was just Mom and Dad and their group of friends, and I think one of them owned it. Like a support group, I think. They had weird parties, I don't remember."
I kept going. Before long, he stopped me again.
"That wasn't our brother. We went to that bedroom, just the two of us. I woke up at some point that night. I didn't move. I could hear breathing that wasn't right. Someone else was in the room with us. I pretended to be asleep still. Why? I was never scared before. Our parents are there, right? But I'm so scared, I don't even want to think in case he hears me. Through the slits in my eyes, I can see a man standing in the room. He's watching you sleep. He's breathing heavy and drooling and watching you. I'm just praying Mom or Dad come in before you wake up, because I don't know what he'll do to you, and I'm too scared to move."
He downed the Wild Turkey and slammed the glass down. I'm surprised it didn't shatter. He was shaking. Sweat had broken out on his forehead.
He muttered something, that frantic muttering, anguished. He's almost blubbering it. I didn't know what it was at first. I thought the Lord's Prayer. That was the first thing that popped into my head. I thought he sang the Lord's Prayer over and over, so fast he's done one in a few seconds. It's the kind of thing people mutter. The longer I lie there in total quiet, except his breathing and muttering, the more I can hear. Actually, no. He was getting louder. He was getting agitated and louder, and I hear what he's muttering. Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me, ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kinda dumb, her finger and her thumb. It's Smash Mouth, All Stars. I used to like that song. Never again.
I do. I really do,
Fucking hell.
he said, wiping sweat from his brow.
I shouldn't be talking about this.
I think so, I asked, refilling his glass.
Not really. Zeke died before you were even able to walk, so he wasn't there.
Is your mom up?
It got into my head, the song. I started thinking too loud. I didn't know about that. Then, that you even have to keep your thoughts quiet. The muttering stopped. I heard something. It didn't sound like he was moving, more like he was scratching himself. But he must have moved, because I felt his face next to my ear. He whispered, "I knew you were awake the whole time, Anthony. I knew you'd be awake, and fake and awake. I knew it a year ago." I was so scared, I think I whimpered, because he said, "Shh, God's sleeping. If you wake him up, he can't dream us anymore."
Let's get some Lucky Charms.
Nothing.
Eat your breakfast. He looked at the bourbon, but didn't actually drink it. I drank mine.
He took you and left.
Did you get them?
He took you and left. When I was sure he was gone, I got up to get Mom and Dad. I couldn't find them. I couldn't find anybody. I was alone in the house. I screamed and cried for anyone to help, but nobody came. He's taken everyone. I thought he'd be coming back for me soon. I called the police, hysterically reporting what happened. They sent someone, seemed to take forever. The officers found everyone back in the woods, way back past the barn. I overheard one of the cops saying they were just standing back there, like they were watching the game. They thought it was drugs. I don't know much about what happened after that. They found everybody, except for you. Nobody ever saw you again. You're a missing person.
I refilled my drink. Anthony was still working on his second. I had a big question in my mind, but I wanted to build to it. And Mom and Dad made a missing persons report for me?
Of course.
And if you talked about me, they did too?
It was a sore subject, but yes. Your room was left untouched until you were declared legally dead on your 18th birthday.
And that's understandable, I said. Now the big question. Here's the problem, Anthony. I remember Mom and Dad taking me from that farmhouse without you or Zeke. How can we both go home with the same people and not see each other?
Assuming we're both telling the truth.
Of course.
I can show you your face in a newspaper.
Then why didn't you say anything when you first saw me?
I was freaked out, okay? Weird things have been happening. Have you heard of Zymus?
I shook my head. He said to never mind and began reminiscing. Moments from our childhood. Pleasant and banal moments. It gave us relief. We'd both been shaking. We each took a third and final shot to calm our nerves. The reminiscing affirmed what we already knew. That we were brothers. We had the same memories, or close enough to the same. Up to that night. We should talk to them.
They died 5 years ago. Car accident. I'm sorry. They're buried near El Paso, where they were living.
I shook my head solemnly. They most certainly did not. They live 30 minutes from here, both retired. Dad drives Uber to keep from going crazy. We sat in silence for some time. I wanted to visit these graves. He couldn't tell me where Zeke was buried. He hadn't been there since I disappeared, he said. And my grave? Since they had me declared legally dead? Somewhere in Ohio, where they'd moved for a time. Why was he not in Ohio or Texas? Why here now? He said for his job. which was convenient since he'd inherited the old house. I'm not sure which house he meant since Mom or Dad never sold the family home. "You have to come with me and see Mom and Dad," I said. "My Mom and Dad. There has to be some explanation for all of this." Anthony's florid face drained of blood. I thought my request was reasonable, but he reacted as if I'd just asked him to hide a dead body.
This whole thing is freaking me out. I've had a good, normal life, aside from one very strange night. A night that was probably 50% a child's imagination. I'm rocking the boat enough just being here.
"Anthony, I want to meet your wife and kids. I want to see my nieces and come to their birthday parties. I want to introduce my wife and son to his Uncle Tony. This is a whole part of me and you that's just been missing this whole time. We just have to get these questions answered first." He agreed to come with me the following weekend to meet my parents. I didn't tell them anything about finding Anthony, nor did I intend to until he was there with me. I didn't know what they'd do when they saw him, but after lying for decades, I'd be very interested to see their raw reactions when I walked in the door with him.
"How do you know that's your brother?"
My wife asked. "We knew all the same things, up to that night."
But it doesn't make sense. Just take a step back. How could he have been missing and right there all this time? How can your parents be different people if you're brothers? Someone is lying.
"Someone is lying," I agreed, keeping it simple so I wouldn't get defensive.
That's scary. I mean, why lie about something like this? This is next level crazy.
She was uneasy. She'd married a man with no siblings, and suddenly there was this weird situation with a sibling, and she was scared for me. I trusted too easily, but like she pointed out, why lie? There would be no profit to derive from this. Anthony called me in the middle of the night a few days later. He sounded perturbed yet calm, his voice an escalated whisper that gave me goosebumps.
When you go places and meet people, are you always afraid they might be able to read your mind? Do you feel like you have to be careful of what you think and not think it too loud, or they might know? Because it's been getting worse for me, and I feel freaking nuts.
"I do," I told him, honestly. I was actually relieved that I had someone to share that with. "I really do," I reaffirmed. All my life I thought anyone could be a telepath, and sometimes I felt sure. That was it. He said,
"Good night."
And we were done. He called again 2 nights later, again perturbed and whispering.
Do you sometimes see people and you're sure you know them, or that they're not who they're supposed to be, and you just know?
"I think so."
Me too. Good night.
My wife became even more uneasy when my son Derek's school called her because a man had come to the school to pick him up.
Could this be him? Is this Anthony?
She asked. I didn't think so. He'd never even met Derek. But following up for her sake, I asked the rescue officer for a description. The man had been tall, thin, with dark hair, looked sickly or malnourished, so definitely not Anthony. By instinct, I asked, was he drooling? After a terrifying pause, the reply was,
No, not that I noticed. Why?
We had to sit Derek down then and have a talk with him about stranger danger, ask him if that man sounded familiar, and so on. We were delicate, trying not to scare him, just asking questions. That's the thing parents have to do, keep all the dread and anguish hidden inside. He had no idea who the man could have been. I stayed up late, wondering who was looking for my son. Why now, just when all this other stuff was happening? And on another level, parents keeping the dread inside, is that what my parents had done? What were they keeping from me? Often, when I can't sleep or some circumstance makes me miss work or something of that nature, I think it may have happened for a reason. Like if I had gone to work, I would have been hit by a train. That night, I became certain I stayed awake because something was going to happen. I became so sure something was going to happen, I got a headache from keeping my head still to hear better. Between my wife's snores, I'd hear cars, a dog barking, a creak, sometimes a moment of quiet. In the quiet, I expected it. Something was going to happen. I wondered what I'd do if I heard someone in the house or in the room or someone trying to get in. What was my escape plan? As soon as I relaxed my neck over the sound of my head scratching the pillow, I was sure I heard something downstairs. I came rushing down the stairs, hoping by sheer coincidence I could trick any intruder that I was a formidable opponent. I saw nothing. Everything was still and at peace. The door was still locked. The carpet that always shifts when someone walks on it had not shifted. Then I saw the chair. It was a chair that is normally kept in the laundry room because we don't need the fourth chair in the set. The other three were around the table like usual. The laundry room chair was next to the island in the kitchen. I stared at it and felt I was in the presence of something evil. Something watching me, considering me, studying how it might destroy me. Not the chair itself, but that it was a person or intelligence who was making himself look like a chair or had somehow inhabited the chair. I stared at the chair, determined not to take my eyes off it for a second. It would slip soon and show it wasn't a chair. On some level I felt foolish, yet not enough to doubt my intuition. "I know you're not a chair," I announced, and instantly my whole body broke into goosebumps and I felt tears welling in my eyes. I expected it to do something. Nothing did. I could resolve this by simply grabbing the chair and pulling it back into the laundry room. Yet I didn't dare touch it. If I touched it, I'd be destroyed. I backed up to the stairs where I waited, still watching, and I fell asleep waiting at the top of the staircase.
What are you doing, Dad?
Derek was asking. "Is your mom up?" was my first question, and thank all that's good he shook his head no, so I didn't have to hear about my odd behavior. "Let's get some Lucky Charms," I said. When we got to the kitchen, the chair was gone. I checked the laundry room. There it was, right where it belonged. It felt like a normal chair now. This was the normal chair.
Who was that man you were talking to in the kitchen last night?
Derek asked. You were dreaming, bud. Eat your breakfast." I had cameras installed around the house, inside and out. After the incident at Derek's school, I got no complaints about the new surveillance. However, nothing else happened between then and the weekend. Anthony texted, after ignoring mine for hours, at the very time we were supposed to be leaving.
Maybe you should just send me pictures of them. No need to go out there and bother you folks.
He clearly had no intention of going. I didn't just want Anthony to see them, I wanted them to see him. I wanted them to stop lying to me. I sent him the pictures anyway. He left me on read. I tried following up. "Did you get them?" Calling, no response. I'd just about given up on the trip when I heard something outside the door, and there was Anthony, standing in my driveway holding a leather carry bag, almost like a doctor's kit. "I didn't think you were coming." He nodded. For the entire drive, he just nodded, used meaningful facial expressions and looks, or the occasional one-word answers. Sometimes his reactions seemed out of place. He looked at me frequently during the drive. I could feel him watching me. I didn't want to say anything. Maybe he's looking for family resemblance. I didn't know what he was going through. I didn't know the kind of person he'd really become. He seemed decent at the first meeting. "I hope you talk more when we get there." He smirked, winked, and nodded a few head bobs. I even asked him if he knew anyone who resembled the person looking for my son. He tilted his head and shrugged, then shook no. It felt non-committal. I'm not sure why I didn't push it. I guess I felt it wouldn't make a difference. He was acting so strange. It was making me nervous. I started to wonder what was in that bag. Guns, I thought. I tried to sound casual when I asked.
Snacks.
I didn't speak to him for the rest of the time. The drive I'd been expecting was one of gradually awakening memories, synapses long dormant firing up as the road where we played street hockey came into view. Definitely not what I got. The first thing I noticed was the overgrown yard. Dad was nuts about a tidy yard, so I couldn't imagine him allowing that to happen. Next, the house didn't look right. It was similar, except it used to be a corner lot, and no, it wasn't. It was smaller. The windows had a dirty, poverty-stricken feel that's hard to explain. I could feel Anthony's eyes absorbing my disturbance. I looked over. He was grinning. "This isn't the right place." He winked. Some things were exactly the same tacky frog statue near the front step. Inside that frog's mouth, the key to the front door was hidden. They'd forget their keys so much, I'm sure everybody in the neighborhood had seen them fishing the keys out of its mouth. I grew up here, lived 19 years of my life here. I knew I didn't get the address wrong. I got out to knock on the door, see if I could get an explanation. When nobody answered, I reached into the frog's mouth. Before I could open the door, my phone rang. In case it was Mom or Dad, I pulled out my phone to check caller ID, showed Anthony. I looked back. He was standing by the car smiling. His wife calling me to tell me he forgot his phone and his meds? I answered.
Sorry for the slow response.
Anthony, clear as day, said over the phone.
The pictures just hit hard.
I turned around again. The Anthony who had been driving with me all day was now directly behind me. I jumped and almost dropped the phone. He looked thrilled.
Snack time,
he announced. What? But he was already gleefully opening his bag. He emptied the bag at my feet. I looked down in frozen shock for too long. The snacks were slithering and hissing in a pile. Snakes. I leapt out of the pile of writhing jaws and, running full sprint, I put 200 feet of distance between myself and the snakes. I kept looking behind me to see if any of the snakes had decided to follow. I checked my feet for surprise bites. I was good. My throat felt sore. I realized I'd been screaming.
What's going on?
Anthony was asking on the phone. You were here. Someone who looked just like you drove all the way here with me.
I never left home. I can't do it.
I begged him to stay on the line with me at least. I approached the house cautiously, looking for snakes and fake Anthony. I even looked under my car. Both seemed to have left in a hurry. A patch of slime soiled the front step next to the snack bag, so I knew I wasn't imagining the whole thing. I unlocked the front door and entered. This wasn't the house I remembered at all. I had no conscious memories of it, I should say. Yet the colors, the feel, matched some of those moments of float I'd been having. It felt like scenes from a movie, some old 80s realist drama. It was no movie. This was the place. It felt exactly like those feelings. An old barbecue rusting away in the backyard flashed in my mind as I reflected. I walked over the dirty gray carpet to the yellowed linoleum on the back of the home. Out of the sliding glass doors to the back, I saw the old barbecue. If I were right, there might even be a container of dogwood berries inside. We'd throw them at each other. They were ammo for our wars. All these memories were coalescing right then.
What's going on?
Feeling weird. This isn't the right house. I mean, it's the right address. But this place isn't right. Yet we grew up here. Do you remember Dogwood Wars?
Yeah. Are your parents not there?
I heard a loud hum from one of the bedrooms down the hall. It had been humming the whole time, I think. I don't think so. Gonna check something. The hum got louder as I approached the back bedroom. A notch on the doorframe about 4 foot had my initials. I opened the bedroom door, expecting bees or wasps. What I found was a combination of air conditioning units and whole walls of data servers. I tried to describe to Anthony what I was seeing. I could tell he wasn't believing me anymore, so I took pictures.
You should get out of there.
What's on these? Who put them here?
Listen, just get out. This is too weird already.
I just talked to Mom 5 days ago.
Dude, just get the fuck out.
I heard car doors. I hoped Mom and Dad were just getting back from grocery shopping, or server closet accessory shopping. The voices and authoritative strides I heard were neither Mom's nor Dad's. I looked desperately for a place to hide. The cables all ran down into the floor in one spot next to the outline of a floor hatch. Using the hatch, I let myself down into the crawl space. Somebody's here, I whispered to Anthony, then put my phone on mute. I wasn't sure if I should just stay completely still or try to find a better spot. If I moved, they might hear me. If I didn't move, they might open the hatch and see my dumb face looking right back up at them. I decided to move as stealthily as I could. I recalled the snakes then. The whole mass of them might have slithered into the crawl space. How had they been so quiet in the bag? As though they'd been waiting. They might be waiting for me now. With my flashlight app, I scanned the crawl space for the snakes. I breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing no snakes near me. I cast the light further. At a far corner, something gleamed. I crawled a little closer, keeping the light pointed that way. 2 things gleaming, like eyes. I got a little closer still. Slowly, they illuminated, as if painting onto a black canvas, the face of Anthony. He was squatting in the corner, glaring at me. I froze with the light pointing directly into his eyes. Suddenly, he released a loud, vulgar hiss and came crawling at me alarmingly fast. I shrieked and scuttled toward a vent I didn't know I could fit through. I punched it as hard as I could without a pause and managed to pull myself out. I ran to my car, got in, and peeled off. In my rearview mirror, I could see men in gray suits coming out of the house. In a moment of panic, I looked in the back seat, expecting to see the snakes or gray man, but it was truly empty. I purposely drove a convoluted route to get back home. Tradecraft, I think the CIA calls it. I turned the volume back up on my phone. Anthony was demanding updates and asking if he should call authorities. I let him know what happened. I'm not certain how much he believed. While I'd been speaking, I noticed a piece of lined notebook paper taped to my dashboard. I pulled off into a Conoco gas station to read it. They were never there. Meet at the farmhouse. Zeke, I read to Anthony.
This is too much. I wish you'd never seen me in that restaurant.
I reminded him that he'd been experiencing strange occurrences before we met. Something was coming to a head, I felt. I was going to go to the farmhouse. I didn't want to go alone this time. He sighed.
I'll meet you at your place.
My wife's SUV was in the driveway when I got home. That was a good sign. When I walked in, she bombarded me with questions about where I'd gone and why my clothes were so dirty. I went to visit my parents, I told her honestly, and had to go into the crawl space. Hard to explain, but I'll tell you later. She told me Derek was down in the shed again. He'd had a rough day at practice and wanted to be alone. No more strangeness?
Just the usual pubescent boy strangeness.
I went to check in on Derek before leaving. I found him aggressively painting. He only painted on reclaimed wood panels we had lying around the shed. As I approached, I could hear the thud of his paintbrush bashing the wood medium. Usually he painted landscapes with dragons or giant spiders, maybe some warriors in the foreground. Boy stuff. This painting seemed to be an alien planet of some kind. It gave me a strange feeling, like something long gone, floating to a time kicking big mushrooms outdoors at night. People I didn't know in the windows. Another kid with me. What you painting?
This is Zemus.
I had to suppress a sensation of panic. Zima's far from here?
Oh God, you wouldn't believe.
He said, so frank and adult-like it caught me off guard.
I'm not even sure you can measure because it's not distance.
Well, it's really creative. I think it's great. He put his brush down then.
Dad, I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen to us when you're gone.
I'm not going anywhere.
I think we just disappear, like we don't exist.
Hey, I said and knelt beside him. What are you talking about? Remember when I showed you David Blaine and you thought he could make you disappear and not exist? I told you that doesn't happen. He's just really fast, right? That's still true. You're safe from disappearing.
I want to go to Zima's to be far from here because everything's falling to pieces here. Everybody's minds are gonna stop working right, and then we're gonna go backwards.
I don't know where you got these ideas.
Uncle Zeke.
I stood up. A wave of nausea and rage swept over me. To Derek, I said, I'm going to have a word with Uncle Zeke because he's telling lies. Okay? Now keep on with your painting. It's a good one. I sat in the shed watching him paint his alien planet while I waited for Anthony. He wasn't painting as aggressively anymore. When Anthony did arrive, I didn't bother with introductions. I could ask forgiveness and fix things later. We had to go. Do you remember the time we found Grandpa's Super 8 porn?
Yeah, I guess I do. The all-day sucker starring John Holmes and the Wintergate girls. That killed us.
Good. Just making sure.
All of this started happening after you saw me at the restaurant. Maybe the lesson is we need to be kept apart. We're like vinegar and baking soda, Tide Pods and teenagers.
It was almost like we weren't supposed to see each other ever again. He was right. Since we did, defenses were activated. We were remembering too much. Maybe we had something dangerous in our memories without knowing it. If we could just remember, we might know who had been doing this, who's been threatening my family, who made my parents disappear. And we could expose them. The farmhouse looked much spookier than I'd even remembered. I was surprised I found it so easily. We hadn't been there that many times. It was almost like a magnet to us, and it appeared to have been left untouched since we'd last seen it. Years of disrepair had left its shutters flapping, hanging on, supported by a single hinge or screw. Some windows broken out, vines and wasps' nests claiming parts of the structure. Much of the white paint had flaked off, leaving a dark grey wood peppered with lichens. I dreamed of this place in the last few years. It looked just like this. I hadn't even made the connection. In the dream, there was an institution inside, like a hospital, but almost nobody was there. Just long hallways, and the traffic outside was bad.
It's still here.
Anthony sighed. Great Uncle Horatio owned this, right?
Oh no, this wasn't in the family. I'm sure of that. Someone from the group.
I didn't see any other vehicles. Nothing to suggest that Zeke was inside waiting for us. I drove around back, turning so the car was facing the road. If we had to escape in a hurry, at least that was ready. Mushrooms grew from the old turnip field. Huge toadstool mushrooms. They looked obscene in the setting sun. When we got to the front door, I remembered the key was being kept in the frog statue's mouth near the front door. I reached in, removing the key. It still worked.
How did you remember that?
We grew up here.
No, we didn't.
I stopped and looked at him. The house, my hand. I felt a moment of absolute panic at the thought that I was losing my mind, that I didn't know where I was or what I was doing. Sorry, I haven't been sleeping. Why was there a frog statue here? The farmhouse felt different seeing it as an adult. I remembered it being huge. Now I couldn't fathom how so many people had squeezed inside. It was well tended, warm, peopled then. Now it was cold and rotten, smelled like rotten turnips. I saw the places where I remember my parents sitting and having a good time, innocent days now covered in dust and mouse turds. Hard to believe we had good times here. Anthony didn't say anything. He seemed confused. We didn't see any indication anybody else had been inside. I've been expecting something. Maybe Zeke, my parents, everybody to appear and explain what had been happening.
Nobody else. Just me.
A man said. He emerged from the kitchen area. He was wearing a green tracksuit. He was tall, dark hair, kind of resembled me. Zeke?
That's right. Old Uncle Zeke.
What?
Cousin?
He asked with a chuckle.
I lose track. Just hang tight. They're coming back.
Whoever you are, you stay away from my son, I told him, my fists tightening.
You just met that kid last week,
he said. He walked away saying,
Here we go.
I followed after him. Anthony tried to slow me down, but I ignored him. Outside, I saw Zeke looking up at the sky. It had gotten dark. The stars were overwhelming out here away from the city lights.
They're gonna want something from you. Something only you know. Whatever it is, whatever they do or say.
As I looked up myself, a rectangle of bluish light opened at a spot in the air about 20 feet above the mushroom patch. I felt nauseous and weak looking at it. Something was approaching from deep in the light.
Whatever thoughts they put in your head, do not give in.
Something vague and shifting was deep in the light. A humanoid figure. This dark thing grew until it emerged from the rectangle, a full-formed man. A gray-looking man, in a gray suit. Yet there was something else hidden behind the atoms. Something that set my nervous system in revolt.
Pick a mantra and repeat it.
The gray man slowly descended through thin air at an incline until he reached the ground. Another one emerged in the same way, descending. The first one was standing in front of me, watching me with empty eyes. The second one joined, and finally a third.
I want to tell you something,
the first gray man said in an ordinary, if emotionless speech. I nodded, but he didn't say anything until I said, Okay.
This is what I want to tell you. A machine sleeping at the center of our world. The great sleep machine, always, always dreaming. If you make a noise too loud, if you make the children scream, the great sleep machine might just stop its dream and set to fixing broken things. We are not the broken things. We are the dream. That's a poem we know. How does that make you feel?
I looked to Anthony and Zeke for guidance. Both of them appeared almost hypnotized, tranced somehow. I think I've heard it.
You just heard it now,
the second gray man said. Before now, I insisted.
Your program is over. You are to go back.
Back where?
Somewhere else. Can you concentrate on the painting?
I looked back to Anthony. I wondered if the two of us could overpower them. They looked weak. Get to the car, drive away, call someone, maybe capture one of them to turn over to the government.
Who would you call?
One of them asked. I could feel them trying to dig into my thoughts. Sensations afloat overwhelmed me as vague glimpses of mostly forgotten memories were stimulated. I saw myself watching movies in my Aunt Grace's basement, having crab legs at the beach when I was 5. An old light brown apartment building with beachfront balconies. Where was that place? An erotic painting on black velvet hanging in a red room.
Think about paintings,
one of them said. The nauseous feeling intensified. I had to lean on Anthony.
Float away. Let go and relax.
Let's just get out of here,
Anthony said suddenly, grabbing me by the arm. But I couldn't move. I was lost in more vague, fleeting memories. Where was that place? With the balconies and the painting? Someone was coming. A father giving his son advice in an old orange-brown room. Sunlight in a kitchen. A trail in the woods that leads to another house. I was there once, when I was a kid. It was an apartment. It smelled like oranges. I didn't want to give them what they were asking for. I needed a mantra, Zeke said. I thought the first thing that came into my mind. Hearing Anthony's voice reminded me of it. Smash Mouth's All-Star. I didn't know all the lyrics, but I knew enough. Stop, one of them said. I didn't. They got more All-Star. My phone rang just then. They stared at me, watched to see what I would do. I had to pause the song in my mind for a moment as the thought flashed. It's Derek.
You better answer. He might be in trouble.
I answered. It was my wife. She told me Anthony had arrived and he wanted to see Derek. He wouldn't leave. I asked her what he was doing now. She said sitting on the couch, drinking Capri Sun. I told her, "That's not Anthony. Call the police." I could hear her panic breathing. And then she screamed. "Leave my family alone," I said. "Please."
Relax,
one of the gray men said. I wanted to give them what they wanted, but my mind could conjure nothing but Smash Mouth now. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. Shape of an L on her forehead. "It's a trick," Zeke said. The gray man in the back waved his hand at Zeke. Zeke rippled, then screamed as he evaporated. One of the other two injected me in the neck with something. I didn't even see him approach. I was instantly paralyzed. The phone fell from my hands. I stood still, my mouth hanging open. I felt them scanning me again, so I kept repeating All-Star in my mind. They took me. They seemed to have no trouble lifting me, like I was light as a coffee table. They took me up that incline toward the light rectangle. The nausea became stronger the closer I got. I had an absolute abhorrence of it. I could see distorted shapes deep in the light. "He failed again," one of them said, pushing me inside. I was in a dark room. When my eyes adjusted, I saw two children, one in the large bed, another in a cot. I stood there, in the middle of the room, looking at the kid in the bed, drooling, unable to move and repeating All-Star obsessively because I knew this could all be in my head. The kid in the bed was me. All those years ago, in his fuzzy dinosaur pajamas, sleeping innocently, unaware of anything. It made me cry to see myself like that, blubbering, drooling, and muttering All-Star lyrics. He'd soon wake up and be traumatized. And in the cot, little Anthony, pretending to be asleep. "Shape of an L on her forehead," I muttered more loudly now that my vocal cords were coming back. I was in Anthony's memory. I remembered what he'd said. The drooling man said something about God sleeping, kidnapped me and ran. I shuffled over to Anthony. I said, "Good night, Anthony. Be a good brother and invest in Bitcoin in 2010. Then I shuffled out of the room and left, still muttering All-Star. Maybe this time we can fight back. I shuffled out of the house and down the gravel driveway. Behind me, I saw a light in the sky. I didn't think I could do much to them in my present state. I stumbled across the road and down behind a rock jutting out of the ground. Someone had scratched on the rock, "Only gets worse," and 7 lines below that. I added an 8th. As I did so, a crushing sense of deja vu shook me and floated to a time when my sister and I were biking to the convenience mart on a hot summer day. Clouds of dust as we drove over dirt patches near the storm drains. I slowly made my way back home to find my wife and son. My phone was gone. My car was gone. I walked until I found a payphone at a gas station and called a cab. The home looking rough. 4 rusting cars were in the yard. I saw 2 half-naked kids on the steps playing with damaged dog figures.
He's back!
one of the kids shrieked, running inside. I stopped fighting, stopped struggling then. I stole a bike from someone's yard and begged for money in the city. I got a job assisting at a library in an old DMV building where the asphalt was crumbling and the traffic was always bad. Eventually, my experience led me to become an actual librarian. I found a new wife. We bought a home in a nice neighborhood where the doors were all red. We started talking about kids. The thought of kids had me off in float again. A shed, bikes in the summer, staying up late with comics with a friend. A chill ran through me. I had forgotten all about what happened. I told myself I'd been drugged, hypnotized, or concussed. It was all a strange fantasy world. One day, a woman walked into the library and dropped a blue circle with lines on the counter. She said, with stifled emotion,
You probably don't remember me.
but I was already weeping. Because she was my sister, and I began to remember it all. I remembered her crying and trying to wake me up at the farmhouse. I remembered two men who walked into the room in business suits like they owned the place, picked her up, and left. Nobody saw a trace of them. Everybody said I was lying. Teresa, I thought you were dead, I choked out. Then I asked her, Do you remember our brothers? She looked frightened as she shook her head. I told her to forget. Go back to work, live her life, enjoy the good memories, and never talk to me again. And don't float, I told her. She handed me her card to reach out to her if I ever needed to. But I hope, she understood that I wouldn't. She worked as an actuary for Zima's insurance.
Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed this story. So this was a special guest narration by TJ Lee, Spirit Voices, and Vidith. I helped out, with the music and sound design. And this was a story made specifically for the channel by Jared Roberts. You might recognize him from the Hidden Web page and a few other stories on the channel. I really like how this one turned out. I think TJ, Spirit Voices, and Vidith did a great job on it. I'm nearly done with my next video, and that should be up in the next few days. And yeah, I'd love to know what you all thought of it in the comments. I hope you have a great day, and after this I'm going to let TJ say a few words about the story in the video.
Hey guys, if you made it to the end of the video, first of all, thank you so much for sitting through it, knowing it's not Ronnie. If you don't know who I am, I'm TJ Lee, also known as Dusklight Radio. I help out with the channel. I do a lot of the additional voices, and I've written the bar series, Nightmare Fighting Tournament, the Sturgeon stuff, and I offered to help out by putting something out in the meantime for you guys to enjoy, give Ronnie a little bit of extra breathing space to finish up his next tale. But yes, I really hope you've enjoyed it. Just a big shout out to Lucy, aka Spirit Voices, to Dexter, and of course to Vidith for all the additional voices you heard today. All the music was of course by Dark Somnium. I really hope you've enjoyed this, and shout out to Jared Roberts, the author of the story. Jared obviously did the Hidden Web page, did my Dad Told Me What Happened That Day, an incredible experimental author who inspired me very heavily to change up my style from Nosleep. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of this story in terms of what it all means. Maybe put it down in the comments, let us know what you think. I think it's a delightfully weird and strange tale, and something really cool for you guys to kind of chew on. We have a lot of cool stuff planned. I am not going to sort of say when anything's coming out, anything like that, because I don't want to set expectations, but please rest assured, we are working on things every day. Oh, and if you want to support me or show any love for what you've heard here, if you liked it, please consider checking out subscribing to my channel, Dusklight Radio. We get shared a lot by Dark Somnium. He's a wonderful sponsor of the channel. He features on the channel. If you enjoy the Sturgeon stories and you want more immersive audio, please head on over there. I'd love to see you there. But yeah, that's it from me. And I really am looking forward to seeing what Ronnie brings to the table. For now, I will leave it here. Thank you so much for all your support. Ronnie hears it and he loves it, and he will be back before you know it. Thanks.